Welcome to Don't Get It Twisted, moving beyond politeness.
We came up with the idea to actually ask one another and ask each other publicly some really difficult questions.
Moving beyond just sitting politely and only reaching the edge of people's comfort zone. We don't have the opportunity to see where our story ends up. I'm gonna be real honest. I'm shaking inside. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it's causing harm.
Yo!
I'm not trying to treat you like you my auntie and we're gonna be in here talking for hours. And we're live. I'm super excited to continue Don't Get It Twisted, season numero dos. Really sad for Toledo to leave Contratiempo, but we're super excited for her as she starts school and continues this journey into whatever it is that she is doing, because y'all know that she's amazing. And I miss my partner, but it's okay. We're gonna get into it with just to start, like, what do you love most about, let's start with creating. What do you love most about art making and creating?
I feel like I've been able to contextualize it more as time continues. And I would say that it is like it's the space to say yes to all of the parts of me. Like it's like a space where I can say yes to my feelings, my experiences, my emotions. And yeah, I feel like there's not many spaces where we can say yes to ourselves constantly or many spaces where we feel safe to say yes to ourselves constantly. And when I'm in the creation space, there's a place that I can reach where I feel safe to say yes to myself. Of course, I think like just in life that there's struggles, right? Like there's like outside impacts that tend to make you doubt yourself or second guess what you're trying to do or trying to create, and so there are like struggles that are inside of that. But I think in essence, what I love about it is like the ability to say yes, and also like the ability to make something that hadn't once, like it wasn't there. Like there's like this, like it wasn't there and now it is.
Yeah.
And I swear that this quote from Rennie Harris is just gonna live in my life for the rest of my life. But the thing that he says of movement is the final manifestation of reality. And so just like, oh my gosh, when I move, like when I actually make a movement, I'm literally creating something out of something that wasn't there. Like it didn't physically live there and now it does. So I think that's like magic. I feel like it's magic.
Magicians. Yes.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I've come to this realization in the last year of, going through times where I wasn't creating for a long time and then starting this new position in the lab. I've always struggled with, like, people always say, like, why do you do dance and biology? They're not related. And I'm like, they are related. I can't explain it, but they are. They are. They fit together, I promise. And it finally clicked in my brain this past year. How they're related and why I love them both so much is because it gives me the opportunity to, like, explore and to discover new things. Similar to what you said, you're creating something that didn't exist before. And I think for me it's about finding something or recognizing something that I didn't recognize or know before. I feel like with inside the creative process, you're discovering things about yourself, you're discovering things about whatever particular topic you're creating around, you're discovering things about your body, like, oh, I did not know that my body could do that. um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think my favorite thing about it is the discovery and the exploration part. And even I just took a class with Toogie,
Mm,
and she did this. Oh, it was so good. It was like a movement meditation.
hmm.
It started off like just stillness. You're just tapping into your breath, and we moved into just like chaotic, just moving around. And when I tell you, I have not felt in my body like that in over in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't moved like that. I have no idea what I look like. I probably look like, but it felt good. Okay, it felt good, and I felt like I was discovering newness inside of this body who doesn't dance as much as it wants to or as it used to, but I was still able to like discover and explore the ways that my body still can move.
Yeah. I hadn't made this connection before, but when I was at ASU, um, I feel like I wish you could have like taken class from Liz when she was teaching at ASU, because we did like a class where we partnered up with like grad students that were in the science department.
Uh-huh.
And so like I made a piece about like a laser electron. I can't even remember, like I couldn't even tell you, but I made a piece about that because we all of us are like all the artists partnered up with like a science grad student, and
Uh-huh.
we made work from their research. Like we talked to them, talked about their research. Yeah. So I was like, what? I just realized like Stanley should really like that connection that you just made, and thinking like, oh my gosh, what? Like we really talked about this my senior year.
That's so crazy. My capstone dance project was based on my senior biology research project. Like
Hey,
I created them together.
that's cool.
Yes, yes. My dancers were like, I don't know what any of these words mean. And I was like, okay, let me just highlight some things or like connect them to maybe some more visual movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so dope. Like people think they're not connected with the
They are.
candy, and they are.
Yeah,
And I love it.
yeah, they are.
Okay. So, the other side, what do you enjoy about organizing? The organizing that you do.
Yeah. So I'm definitely I want to say I'm new to the like the active community organizing. Um, I really would show up for my friends that did the actual community organizing and showed up for them whenever I could. And so I was around them when they would do it, and I would like hear them talk about their stories. And specifically Shelly, I would show up for Shelly when she would do something, or listen to her as she would talk about everything that she was doing. And so I was around it, but I didn't necessarily like, lead anything until I got I mean, I did like when I was in school, I guess you could consider that. I was part of a club, and we would create events and then invite like the hip hop community, and then also get the students from the school to be there. Yeah. But anyways, so then when I got the job this summer working for the campaign, the Biden Harris campaign, and really just the Democratic coordinated campaign. Um, and I think I had a very uh, interesting experience, because the way that that works is that there a lot of people that are organizing as like a job, like a career. There, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're from there. So like the people leading that campaign in Arizona, some of them were from Arizona, but there are also some people that are not from Arizona. And then on top of that, though, what happens on like a day to day, month to month, year by year organizing, like those people live here, right? Like the community organizing that happens locally happens year round, and they're here all the time, and they're doing the work all the time. So then when it comes to like a presidential election, it's really like interesting, because there's these people that aren't from here that come in and start organizing in these places that have already had people organizing in them. And so I feel like I had an interesting experience because of that. And honestly, like what I loved about it was like people just showing up for one another and showing up for one another, even knowing like when it came to this specific election, like there were and when with a lot of things, there's other people that are affected more, right? Like people of color, and then even more Black people are affected more by negatively by policy, right? And so white people aren't affected as much that way, and so even though they aren't affected as much that way, they were showing up. Even though people of color aren't affected as much, they were showing up, right? And so just this way that people were showing up for one another was really, really beautiful, and really beautiful to experience, and like emotional, especially during a time where it felt like no one was showing up for anybody. Yeah, because with all the uprisings that were happening, you know, you really tend to feel like yes, people were showing up, but it felt like still like not enough people were showing up, and not enough people were doing the work. And so then when I would find myself in these organizing spaces and people were showing up for one another, it would be really emotional and really beautiful for me to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Literally the same. My favorite is just the people, is the relationships that you built, and then on and even when you're planning like a particular event, just the way that people come together and say, "Oh, I have this. I have a generator. Oh, I have a mic. Oh, I have speakers. Oh, I know this person that can dance, or I know this person that can sing, or I know this person who can talk about this and who can lay out the demands that we're calling on for them from the mayor." Like, and all these things, all the relationships that come from each individual person create this larger, amazing, amazing thing. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that you brought up like community organizing as a career, like a job that you get
Mm.
paid for. Because I was talking to my friend Ricky. He's an organizer, like that's his job, and yeah, we were just talking about how he comes from union organizing a union
Mhm.
organizing family as well. He's based out in, or his family is in LA, actually, Tiachuchas, well, the Valley. Um,
Ah,
and But yeah, Ricky was talking about how his family organizing wasn't necessarily their job. They had their job that they went to every
yeah,
day, and the organizing was something that they did while they were working or
yeah.
after work or on the weekends. Like it was something extra that they did. And so even in when he talks about his experiences working with these different organizations, things come up. Like sometimes it's really toxic because they're thinking about their brand and their reputation and putting on this front for the people, but then they having these internal things happening inside of the organization, right? Um, yeah, and it can be exhausting. Like it can be exhausting sometimes because you
Yeah.
be when you do it out of like your love and compassion for people, you bring a you bring a different type of energy to it. Like
Mhm.
you show up differently versus this is my job. I'm clocking in right now to be here taking care and feeding these people, right? And then I clock out at 2
Yeah.
after the lunch rush, you know?
It's also, I think, I mean, on top of that, because these are things that directly affect the people that you love
Yeah.
and the person that you are. Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing, right? Like, yes, because you care, all of that, yes. And then on top of that, the people you love are directly affected by the thing that you're organizing for. Um, yeah, and a lot of like I can only speak from like my experience organizing, and again, it's like super small and short and one little area of organizing, which is the coordinated, and I was only organizing like as a job for like 5 months. Um and it is exhausting. It is tiring. I was like talking about like what it means to ask somebody for help, and like what the word help means. And you know, when like someone's drowning and they yell help help, or when someone is hurt and they yell help help, or you know, the word help has like this um like I need you right now, and I because I am suffering and I need you right now. And so then when I would go into like making phone calls and asking for help, and I would get a no, it like hurt, like if you know, like it really was like painful every time I got a no. And of course maybe there's like some emotional boundaries that I I could have set, or a different way that I could maybe compartmentalize, but I don't know how much I agree with that. That could have helped me, but I mean it is tiring, it is taxing. And I mean I also see it in the, again, the people that are around me and the people that I love that are doing, you know, the community organizing all the time. And another thing was that I've talked about with, it was Shelly too, was like we get lost in, like sometimes it becomes transactional because we get lost in the sauce. You know how we were talking with Ana Maria and the whole team, and we were talking about how white supremacy is like the waters that we live in. And I mean, that is it everywhere and in everything. And so even in those spaces where we feel like we're doing the best work that we could possibly be doing, it's still possible to get lost in the sauce. And sometimes it becomes transactional and just like I do this and this happens in return, and I do this and this happens in return. Yeah.
I think too. I'm not sure. Are you taking Karita's course?
I am, but I'm behind.
Okay. Well, yesterday, in one of the sessions, we were talking about like what does it mean to be anti-racist? And right now, there's like so many people who are doing so good work teaching people about anti-racism and how to be anti-racist, right?
Mm,
And but then what it seemed like was that it was just checking boxes. Like, okay, I'm
yeah.
going to do this for my class, and now I'm anti-racist. And then I'm going to do this with my family, and now I'm anti-racist. And I'm like, the ultimate goal is to just exist as daily life, no, like without racism, right? And so in community organizing, I think continuing to tap into those relationships and that compassion and love is so vital and important, because then it doesn't become just check boxes, or it doesn't become transactional. It becomes like this is just part of this is just who I am, right?
Yeah.
And it's so amazing to watch like these people, like you talk about Shelly and then my friend Ricky too, who do this like on a day to day, and they are so passionate about it. Like every time I don't know if this is you with Shelly, but every time I talk to Ricky, he's always working on something else. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm organizing this thing, and I'm like, Ricky, what you just talked about? You just finished organizing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna need some help. And like it's just part of who they are. Like they just have this like attachment to the people and to the communities that they're a part of, and
Yeah.
it's so wonderful. I know I'm new to look. I'm new to all. I don't. It's not. I don't do it for work. Like
Something else I was thinking about when we were talking about having this conversation, and it's super in line with what you just said about like checking off boxes, is that well, one, which I'll come back to this, but it becomes performative is the other thing that I was thinking about. And then the other thing was that the interesting thing about it all is that then now all of a sudden we have these words and these actions and these things and steps you need to take. And now it's like, now it's white supremacy. Like, wait a minute, hold up. We're only letting you in if you know how to talk about this. You need to say it right. If you don't say it right, then you're wrong. Perfectionism, white supremacy. Wait, hold up. What are we doing now? Like,
no, we were literally had that conversation because somebody said, Karita, you need to like people need to like have a certification or get some sort of document that says they're certified to teach this stuff. And we're like, worshiping the written word. Like then you get the people who just who just do the test. Like just do the test, get the A, get the piece of paper, and now they can like it. Yeah, it's hard. Like you were saying, we're swimming in the waters. It's everywhere. It's in our blood. Like how do
yeah.
we? It's a struggle. It's going to take a lot of work, right?
Um, I mean, so the performative thing, I think that that's enough. I don't think I need to come back to it. I think that's clear. It's just
Yeah.
becomes performative. And one of those things is like on social media, which is super, super hard because you're like, if you don't post anything, then,
People
you know,
don't
you're
know or something.
exactly. And it's like, okay, but then if I post something only because I know that you're gonna call me out for not posting something, then doesn't that become performative? Right? Like, am I only just then posting because I know that you're gonna get mad at me or you're gonna call me out as somebody who doesn't support the movement? Now I'm performing for you. Now I'm only doing it to make sure that you don't call me out and that you think and you know that I support the movement. And it's like, I mean, did you even succeed by pressuring someone to do that? Like, what was the outcome? What came out of that? And I, again, to bring back Shelly into the conversation, her and I were just talking about that too, about like checking ourselves, because there's times where something happens, right? Because I mean, almost like every single day, every other day, there's something that's going on that is injustice happening around us. And it's like, if I don't post this, are people gonna, say X, Y, and Z about me? And so then I just post it anyways. But then like checking yourself and sometimes not posting it, because really you posting it is just being performative. I don't know. I don't know.
I okay, so this is something in like thinking about what we were going to talk about today. I started thinking about the difference between um, like actually like community organizing and activism. And I feel
Mm,
like they're very distinctly different. Organizing is really
yeah.
connecting people, using your hands, using your body, right? And activism is about I stand for this, this is what I believe. And I feel like the activism is what people put on social media. And I feel like the organizing part is what people do in person, right? And so I struggle with that too. Like, do I post this? And even some people I see who I know post a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should repost this. You know, what do they think? They know me in this arena. What will they think if I don't post this, right?
Yeah.
And and I think, yeah, I mean, social media, you love it but you hate it. You
Yeah.
know, it's
I mean, it's similar to like, again, similar to, I'm not gonna say we love, it's like similar to capitalism.
mm,
You hate it, but
but
then you still want the nice house.
yeah,
You still want the new shoes.
yeah,
you know? Yeah. Uh yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so it's a really hard. I don't I don't know. I didn't come up with any answers. It was just a half thought. But like
Yeah.
how can we really use social media as a way to genuinely connect with people? Because honestly, this is all about people, right? It's all about like making sure that folks have the resources and the opportunities for them to exist as their best selves, right? And so how can we really use it efficiently and effectively to
Yeah.
connect with people and connect with people?
I had another thought too when you said activism, and just thinking of like the word like activate. I
Mm,
felt like a good, like
mm,
you're activating people and you're like igniting people and activating them to do something. And I think that what you said, like distinguishing the difference between activism and organizing, I think is important. And just even just like saying that they're different and saying why they're different, like made me think about like our work, like because sometimes we felt, and I mean, we all felt sometimes like, what are we really doing though? Like, we're getting on a stage and we're dancing, and like,
leave.
yeah, like, did we even do anything? Like, did we even? But there is, I mean, we obviously can name the importances of representation and seeing ourselves in others and all those things, but we couldn't help but ask the questions of like, what are we? And I think activating is something that we do. We activate people, we like ignite them and inspire as artists.
Yeah. And activate is like, I don't know, you say it and I like,
Yeah,
ooh,
yeah,
activate, like I'm ready, you
yeah.
know? And I and yeah,
Like Transformers.
Yeah, like Transformers, be like,
Like activate.
activate, Autobots, activate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I like that. I think too. Yeah, I like that.
Um, One other thing that I'm making sure that I come back to these thoughts because when you were saying these things, some things like popped into my head, and of course, again, Adrienne Marie Brown comes up.
Oh yeah.
But when she wrote her book, "We Will Not Cancel Us," I think that's what it's called. "We Will Not Cancel Us." When she wrote that book, like inside the book, you will see, like she says, I know that some of my people will, like my community, like organizers that I work with, will not like this, will not like what I'm going to say, will not agree with me necessarily. But I think it's important that I say this. And that felt like very powerful to me, knowing that, because I found myself where I wanted to say some things and I know that like it won't be the popular thing to say and I might get canceled. but and I mean also it's like fair to like I do want to question myself and check myself and reflect what is the impetus for me to say this, like what exactly like triggered me to say this and what is the reason behind that before I harm, in the space with my response. But even then, I'm like, no, I feel like this doesn't feel right, or I feel like I need to say something. And I don't because of fear of that. So when I read that book, and I haven't finished it, but when I read the first couple pages, I was like, ugh, she said it anyways. Oh, like she went and said it anyways. Yeah.
That brings up something too that I find um I find myself feeling this a lot in both activist communities as well as art making communities, um, is that there is like a certain uh, persona or like assumption of who you are to exist in that space, right? And
Mm.
when I don't fit that persona, or when I don't, uh, yeah, when I don't fit that persona, I sort of, yeah, I stay quiet. Like I like, okay, maybe I won't say anything about that. But I think it's important, especially in, I'm trying to link these two, so art making and activism, right? Especially in activism circles, it's so important to have those disagreements and to have like those
Mm.
uh, multi faces, multifaceted. Oh my goodness, that word makes sense now.
I'm weak.
Oh, but like to have all of these faces of this particular idea. So, okay, for example, I'm a Christian, right? And when I enter into these activist spaces, there aren't very many of me.
Mm.
I say very many of me. There aren't very many Christians. They're like they practice other spiritualities, whether it's traditional African religions or indigenous religions or crystals and things, or they just say I'm not religious, I'm just me. And I have a hard time speaking up about God in those spaces, but I think it's so important that if we are going to if we are trying to create a world where multiple identities can exist, then we need to be able to like
Yeah.
be our identity, right? Or not be, that's not really what I'm trying to say, but like to exist as yourselves.
Yeah.
And how I relate that to art making is the storytelling aspect. I think we were having this conversation in one of our engagement meetings, actually, when we were talking about swimming in the waters of white supremacy, and the different stories that we present on stage. And the idea is to present all these different stories so that we can show people that we are not just one thing, but that we exist as many things, and that we can exist as many things. And by existing as many things, we can create this awesome, beautiful
Yeah.
thing. I said things a lot, but yeah, and I think that, or what I've observed in my experiences is that it doesn't feel like there are, I'm not seeing a lot of things. I'm seeing this is
Mm,
what an activist is. This is what a dancer is. This is
yeah.
what a Christian is. And if you don't fit into those boxes, then obviously you aren't actually this. Like you're not a real Christian if you voted for Biden, or you're not a real dancer if you,
Mhm.
I don't know. You're not a real, you don't actually stand for black lives, or you don't actually stand for trans lives if you worship
Yeah,
Jesus. Yeah. So
that's so true. Yeah, that's so true. One thing that I did want to say was that I think that, well, one that like this connection to spirit in some kind of way, I think is, well, when it's a similar in all these things, right? Like in all these different ways that we believe and ways that we believe in spirit, this concept of believing in spirit, and also for the word faith keeps like coming up, like, you know, like having faith in something is like believing and just really like believing.
that when you step, there's going to be ground there.
Yeah. um so I feel like that the presence of that is, um I don't know, it lives inside all of those.
Yeah.
And another thing I did want to say was one time where you did like, there was one time where I said something in one of our meetings and it had something to do with something that was in the Bible, and you did step up and you were like, actually, and I was like, you're right, Stanley, you're right. But so what I mean, why I said that is just to like shine light on that. It's like, give yourself more credit, like you do stand up for that and you do take up space for that. So
Yeah. I think that if you enter into a space and somebody opens up that permission, then you're like, oh, maybe I am. And I feel like I found that in Contratiempo. Like at first I was afraid, like, oh, like I was scared. I was like, oh, I'm practicing. I'm doing these dances of Orishas. Like, are my church folks about to be like,
ah,
splash me with holy water? And then like I'm also like, okay, I'm doing these dances of Orishas, but I still love God. Like I like it, but this
mm,
feels good in my body. So what is, like, yeah. But then I started getting a little bit more comfortable with that, because I mean it's important to be in the practice and to surround your people. I mean, to surround yourself with people who aren't like you. Like that's just important. In fact, in church this morning, my pastor was talking about that. What was
yeah.
it? He was saying, oh, he was talking specifically about allowing yourself to be surprised, but it came up like,
Mm,
if you only surround yourself with people that you know, and you already know what's going to happen and what they're going to say and how they're going to react, like you're not going to open yourself up to receive something that's new and even greater and even better for you. So allow yourself to be surprised and reach out to that person that may not think like you, right?
yeah.
And it'll unlock something. There's this dancer who I've connected with out here in Durham. His name is Jose Hernandez, and he teaches a lot of like street dance styles, house breaking. He does a little bit of locking, and then he's also part of the crump community out here. And he was taught. We were talking, like, because I was interested. I mean, I haven't lived here since I graduated high school, so I really don't know what's going on, right?
Mhm.
And so I was just asking him about the dance community, and he's trying to do some projects and stuff. And he was like, yeah, it's really hard for me to like connect with dancers, because the dance community is so segregated. You have the
Mhm.
collegiate dancers, and then you have like the commercial dancers, and then you have the street dancers, and they're all separate and they don't associate with each other. Maybe there might be a little teeny overlap, like this person, but they really don't associate with that person. But what does it mean to like bring all of this together, right? What can you learn as a college student from the crumper, right? How can that elevate your college experience? Or what can you learn as a commercial dancer in a house class? Like how can that elevate your performance, and how can you what can you learn as a street dancer from all these other areas, right? And how can that elevate you in battles and your cred, right? And so
Hmm.
yeah, I just, that overlap is so important,
Yeah.
and I really want to see that happen. I really
Yeah.
want to see that happen.
Yeah. I remember what I was thinking about.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's kind of in line, but maybe I'm taking it in a different direction. Well, one was that I think what some people get like get a misconception that what some of us are trying to do is not make us all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that sometimes people start to fear that that's what we're trying to do, and that's not what we're trying to do. One. And then the other part was that I found myself in conversations with like um, multiple people, one being my grandpa, but multiple people, where I start to give this my opinion or my thought or my dream, more my dream and my dream of like, we can um or that I don't like the what money has done to all of us and what capitalism has done to us, and how what defund the police really means and why we believe in defund the police. um yeah, so and having these conversations, my grandpa and again other people that I've had, what I've noticed is when I have this conversation with other people, their initial thought is like, I disagree with you, is like the initial way that the conversation starts. It's like, you think this and I disagree with you. And then as the conversation evolves, it actually appears that we don't disagree with each other. We actually don't disagree with each other. We actually both have the same vision for the world. Like, we have this vision of this, and what ends up happening is that not so much that that the person disagrees with me, but the person doesn't think it's possible. So
Mm.
that's where I've discovered, yeah, it's not so much that we don't agree. It's more so that you don't think it's possible that that can happen. And there's, well, one, I think that's dangerous, period. Because then there's like this like halting on imagination, a halt on dreaming, a halt on, because dreaming and imagining is not necessarily the act of like um it's not like, I want to say that it's not like pressed by it's going to happen, but more so pressed by it can happen, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not like I'm sitting here and telling you like in my lifetime these are the things that are going to happen,
Yeah.
but that I can dream of this happening, and in some kind of way, in some kind of path, because I'm dreaming and because I'm imagining, we'll get there in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even just the act of dreaming like pushes us a little bit closer to that. But again, what I noticed again was like, we actually don't disagree. There is no disagreeing. We both want what's best and beautiful for the world. Is that not what we want? And it's like, yeah, it is what we want. But we just think that we have different ways of getting there, or different ways that we think we can get there. But like, even inside of religion, like, we have this image of what the world can be and what's possible. We just have different ways of getting there.
That's, oh my goodness. This was years ago that I was having this conversation with somebody, and it popped up in my head about religion, right? And this person, what was it? I think they were like comparing the major uh, world religions: Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam, right? And how
Mhm.
it's like they all have a God. They all believe that, killing people is bad. Like, they all just want to be happy and trying to live prosperous lives,
Uh,
right? So
yeah,
what's what's the difference? I don't understand. It's just they got different names,
yeah,
honestly. And yeah,
yeah.
and actually, even when you think about, I mean, I don't know that much about Ifa or Catholicism either, but from what I understand, a lot of the Orishas align with the Catholic saints. I mean, that's
Mhm.
because of, colonization, and they were trying to trick them to be like, you're Catholic, right? But even with that, like, there's this parallel, right? We're all
Mhm.
just trying to find our path. We're all, trying to,
The
yeah,
best versions of ourselves.
we're trying to just transform into the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good. That was good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting that we ended up here.
I know, I know. But it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so I mean, circling around to toxic patterns that we might notice inside of organizing and activism and art making. Like, what do you? Yeah. What do you see? What do you notice? What have you experienced?
I mean, I'm gonna go back. I think that re-emphasizing what we talked at the beginning of like this cycle of like breaking through, and then we actually are now what we were trying to break out of, and then someone has to break out of that, and then we're actually now again what we were trying to break out of, and it's like this whole thing. And I think that with what was happening online, inside our dance community, to be completely honest, because that's the who I associate myself with more, like, those are my friends on Instagram. um I'm finding ourselves slipping into the very things that we're trying to fight against. And I think the scary part is that some of us aren't noticing when we do it. Like, we're not noticing that that's where we're at and where we're going towards. And so yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but I'm nervous about how that's harming us as a community. And then when we come back into spaces together, how that's going to show up. Like, how is that going to show up when we're now again in these spaces? Now, I think that, like, at least when I think of hip hop, and um when I first, like, when I turned 21 and I found myself at all these clubs.
You just found yourself, like, you just, I don't know.
Oh, what am I doing?
And then all of a sudden,
I'm in this. um, I feel like at that time we weren't really talking much about stuff. And even now, like you find yourself like, oh my goodness, I actually don't know what this person does for a living, or oh, I don't know where this person lives, or I actually don't know, like, if this person is close to their family or not. Like, you realize that there's so much that you don't know about the people that you have these intimate experiences with. Because,
yeah.
I mean, dance is very intimate. And so you're like, whoa, we just had this very intimate moment. And now I actually realize that I don't know a lot about who you are, what you do, what you love, aside from dance. And I feel like prior to this, there was a lot of things that we weren't talking about. Like, one of the things of, like, the sexual harassment stuff. There had been conversations that had popped up, but really, really in the past year, it's like yeah, totally.
Everybody's talking about it all together. It's not just these one-off conversations that
Yes,
yeah.
that's what it is. Yes, that's what it is. It's not just these one-off conversations. And out of this, I actually received an apology that I never thought I was going to receive. I literally never thought I was going to receive an apology from this particular person and situation, and I received an apology. I mean, not to say I was ready for that, to be completely honest. Like, I don't know if I was ready to confront that situation again and have to, like, decide, do I accept this apology? Do I not? There was a lot of things that came up with that, but I do feel like there's conversations that we're having that we weren't having before. And so I think that's really good. But I also fear that we're hurting each other a lot. And when we come back to being able to be in the same space again, that I don't know how that's going to show up.
No, that's yeah. And talking about these conversations, like, do you feel that do you feel like the conversations are helpful? I mean, you said you received this apology and you weren't sure if you were actually ready for it, but do you feel like it was a step in the right direction? Do you feel like even though you weren't ready for it in the moment, but yeah, I'm just wondering about the power of of conversations. I hear mixed things like
Yeah.
everybody's trying to talk about it, but what are we actually doing about it? You got to be about it. Da, 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 da. But also, like, I mean, thinking about this ideal world as not that Rennie Harris quote, movement is a manifestation of our reality, right? And so it's not that our reality is this stagnant thing.
Uh,
It's constantly moving and shifting. And so, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how helpful can those conversations be? You know, let's talk about where are we going to move next. Let's talk about what's happening. Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, I think that they've been. It's like it's either they're helpful or they're not, and I feel like I feel like the problem though is that sometimes it's not. It hasn't been that they're helpful or they're not, but more so they're helpful or they're harmful, and I feel like that is like not good. Versus like either they're helpful or they're not. And if they're not, okay, like we had to figure it out and do something
Yeah.
different. But they've recently been either they're helpful or they're harmful. And like some of the stuff behind like for instance, the racism, anti-racism, undoing racism conversations
Yeah.
when you did it, you did it. We could both relate to this. Urban Bush Women Summer Leadership Institute.
Yeah.
There was um, a lot of thought put into the way that that was structured, and I mean they've been doing it for years, right? So there was a lot of thought put into it. I feel like a lot of love and empathy, but also like strength and like and so I felt even though it like for me was I really had a hard time, and even my mom will remember and be like, I thought you weren't gonna be okay after that. Like it was hard for me. It was a really difficult experience for me. Beautiful, powerful, amazing experience, but also difficult. And but I felt safe enough to go through it. Even though like in this space, like not in this space, but when I would go home, I would cry and tell my dad, like, I don't know what I'm doing, what's wrong with the world, like all these things. I felt safe. Like I felt safe, and I trusted. I really did trust the people that were facilitating, and I really did trust the space.
Mhm.
Some of these um like anti-racism things that are happening, I'm nervous that they might not be safe. That's why I'm saying that they might be harming more than they are helping. And again, I don't know if that's true, but because I'm not in those spaces, and so maybe it's like on me that I should be in those spaces to then really come up with like, is this really happening or not? But my fear is that, like, are the people being taken care of in this space? Are they, and not in a like white fragility, are you being taken care of? But like, yeah, like the way that I felt in Urban Bushwoman Summer Leadership Institute, where I felt like I could trust my, trust being going through everything that I was going through. And again, like, it's not like in that, like, I was a mess. Like, and
Look, me too. Okay.
I
Where I go home, or I go home. I was staying at a friend's, but I would like leave and feel bitter, like so bitter. Everybody I passed on the walk home or on the train ride, I'm like, or like so cuddly, and I'm just like, you guys are so wonderful. I know you don't know me, but you are beautiful and you matter. Like it was a mess. I was a mess that whole 2 weeks.
yeah. Well, and then I went and I could feel it in my body because then I did futuro. I did futuro right after. And
That's
I could
right.
even feel myself be like really upset, even in the futuro space. And so there was it I felt like I experienced everything that I needed to experience of it being difficult and me like going through it without it being harmful.
Mm.
And I can't tell you what it is that they did. Like I can't tell you what it is that they did because they have it like they have this, I don't know, they have it down. Um but I was still able to like get, you know, quote unquote like beat up in my thinking and still go through that like intensity of a workout but without it being harmful.
Yeah. Wow.
Um
That
yeah.
just because it hurts doesn't mean it's causing harm.
Yo, yes. Yes, Stanley, write that down.
I did.
Yeah, just
Wow.
because it hurts doesn't need to mean, yeah, that's so real. And so again, that's one of the things that I yeah, I don't know, that I fear. Another thing that I'm thinking about the organizing and the organizing that I did,
Mhm.
something that even like, so one, me go, so I'm not from San Luis, right? San Luis, Arizona is further down south, but that's where I was organizing. I live in Glendale is where I grew up, and I have like, I really know like the Phoenix, Tempe, Glendale area really well. And I was organizing in San Luis. So I'm like showing up to these meetings, showing up to these like um town hall meetings and helping and supporting candidates and doing what I can as I'm organizing. And then I leave. Like I just left and I came back to Phoenix and Glendale.
Mhm.
And well, one, I'm thinking of like how I feel hypocritical. Like I do, right? Like I came into this space like we need to do these things and we need to make sure we show up. And then I like leave. It just doesn't feel, it doesn't, I don't feel good about it.
Wow.
Then the other thing too is that like I'm hurt, I hurt a little bit. Like so I feel like that not only does it, not only like does like this organizer coming in and like saying all these things cause, I mean, I don't know if it does, but could cause harm inside community. But me as an organizer, I feel a little bit harmed too, because now I'm like leaving somewhere that I had like created some relationships in. And I think about people sometimes and how hypocritical it feels sometimes too to have been in those spaces and been like, we need to show up. And then now I'm not showing up because that's not where I live.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. So it just, yeah, it did it. Yeah. I get that when it comes to voting, numbers matter. Like I get that. But then the problem with that is, like we said earlier, is that it becomes transactional.
It becomes about the numbers and not
Mhm.
about the people that the candidates and the policies are supposed to
Yeah.
be affecting, right?
Yeah.
Man, that story really just, dang, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And I'm doing this like advocacy fellowship. And so I'm hoping that with doing that, I will learn, I feel like I know that I'm going to learn a lot, but I'm hoping specifically like how can I come out with like some like very like physical like things and actions that I can take um that feel like doable and reachable. Because sometimes it's so, it feels sometimes so separate, like um like going and showing up at a council meeting, or like those things sometimes feel so separate. And that they shouldn't, like they shouldn't feel separate because they affect us, they directly affect us. And so I'm like wondering like how, what are ways that I can have more like substantial and like I don't know, like things I can touch and like things that I can like do where I can actually feel like I'm taking a step forward, or yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering, so thinking about like what you were talking about is really how you enter and how you exit communities, especially communities that you didn't have a relationship in the past, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, like, do you have any strategies or tools that you could offer that would help to sort of, I mean, we're going to feel a little pain, you know, we built relationships and now we got to go, but what are some strategies or tips that you could potentially offer to help mitigate that pain or facilitate that pain? Not facilitate
Yeah,
pain, but facilitate the potential for healing later.
yeah. I think one is that when you're inside of those spaces in the relationships, being genuine about things. So not like not showing up just because you need to, but showing up because you want to. Because then later on, if you only were showing up, like you're being fake, right? You're like, oh hey, like we should hang out, like let's get coffee, and then later on you don't talk to them ever again, then you were being fake in that moment, right? And so I think like even if I didn't ask to get coffee with you and that was just me being real, that's way better than like pretending to say I want to go get coffee with you and getting coffee with you and like and laughing and being fake and then getting this what happens afterwards. So I think just being genuine inside of the relationship, and I would say, which I need to do a better job at this, is like still showing up even if it's in the smallest ways. Like I got invited to a meeting for one of the organizations in San Luis, and I didn't go. And I wanted to go, but I didn't. And so I think like still showing up like once a month to a Thursday meeting, especially with the people that I really enjoyed being around with, just so still showing up and still showing up in the ways that I can. Yeah.
Um, I think this is something that I'm working on. One, I feel like if you build those genuine relationships that you were talking about, these people, even in the future, even when you leave, they'll enter your brain. They'll come onto your heart, and you'll be thinking about them like, oh, remember that one time. And something that I'm really bad at that I need to work on is that when I do think about a person or a group of people, like to just reach out and be like, hey, what's up? Y'all just popped into my brain. Like, what's going on? Check in on people, and even if it's not consistent, just
Yeah, every once in a while.
once in a while, when somebody shows pops up on your brain, reach out to them.
There is a yeah, I agree. I agree. There is also I think and it's like finding the balance because I think there's also like a pressure that's been built behind um like having people do tech like the touch of a finger. There's like this pressure sometimes that we have to be connected all the time to other people. And so I think it's like finding the balance between that. Cause yeah, sometimes like Lily is a perfect example for me. We don't talk every day, we don't text every day, but like every 2 months we'll call each other and be like, "Hey, how are you? What's up? What's going on?" And I don't make her feel bad for not calling me, and she doesn't make me feel bad for not calling her. Yeah, and so I feel like sometimes we put pressure on each other to be constantly connected to one another, and even like with you, like when you randomly send me something about something happening in your life, like
So
that's enough. And yeah, I think sometimes we put this pressure on each other that we need to be like constantly involved in each other's lives, and I don't think that's necessary.
no, not at all. And I think now, even in the age of social media, and you tell me how you feel about this, but I also feel like just a simple comment on somebody's
Yeah,
post can be really nice too, even if it's not y'all have a whole conversation on the phone or a text message. Don't just heart it. That don't count. But like, I take the time to actually like type something to the person.
yeah,
I feel like is nice too. Be like,
yeah,
hey, I was thinking about you. Just a cute picture. I see you. Heart. Like it's
yeah,
simple. But yeah.
yeah.
There have been um, ways in which Contratiempo, as a dance company, as an activist dance company, has caused harm to current and past company members,
Mm,
right? And so I'm wondering, like, one, what's the root of that, and two,
mm.
how can we move forward from that? How can we continue to yeah, to continue to grow and learn from those experiences. And I mean, I would say that we've gotten better, especially with like current company members. I feel like we've gotten better in
Yeah.
our weekly meetings talking about how we're undoing some of the things and even calling ourselves out. We've gotten into the habit of calling ourselves out. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just wondering what's the root of some of those things and how we can continue to learn from it and grow from it.
Yeah. Um, I think you were there when this happened. Uh, but there was a we were in I think it was an engagement, our Monday engagement meetings, and we were just getting ready. Actually, we were just getting ready to start them. And I think I did talk to either I talked to you. I know I talked to Charlie about this on the phone. But we were just getting ready to start them, and we were saying how we were excited. And I talked to Ana Maria about this already too. But Ana Maria made a statement of like, oh, we were all talking about how Toledo is an amazing teacher and how Toledo's so great and how we want to learn how. Delphi was like, I want to learn how to teach like Toledo. And
Look,
we were just talking about how great Toledo is as an educator and as a teacher. And so then Ana Maria followed with a statement of like, oh, Toledo learned a lot of her teaching from Contratiempo, and because of it, I don't remember verbatim what she said, but it sounded like Ruby received it. Let's be clear. Ruby received it like, oh, she only teaches that way because of Contratiempo. And she only teaches that way because I was teaching how to, like, I gave Toledo some of the tools that she uses now. That's how Ruby received it. I don't remember what was really specifically said, but that's how I received it. So I was like, okay. And I even literally. And so like, and I checked myself. Like, I think that's one of the things that I'm gonna say I'm proud of myself about, is that like I reflect and I try to think like, why did I just react that way? Why did I have that kind of reaction? Kid you not, when that happened, I muted my microphone and my mom was in the kitchen and I was like, oh my gosh, Ana Maria just said, I kid you not. I'm gonna be super transparent, and Ana Maria knows this because I told her this. Kid you not, I said, I say that. I like mute myself. I'm like, Mom, like I can't believe that she said that. It makes it seem like the only reason why Toledo, is this amazing teacher is because of Contratiempo and because of her. Like I literally manifested that way. I waited a week. It still manifested, like it still like was felt that way. And then I was like, okay, Ruby, this is your moment to like ask Ana Maria to talk to her and tell her like, when you said this, it was received this way.
Yeah.
And so that used to be really hard for me. Like I'm not gonna front. Like it was really, really difficult for me to speak up like that. And then the another thing that I want to note is that I keep saying that Contratiempo for me has been a space where I could practice to be this person, this powerful, like take up space and like say what I need to say person, because I feel safe in that space. That doesn't make it any easier, right? Like it's still really hard. But I do know that Ana Maria is going to receive me, and that in fact she's going to be proud of me for saying something. And so I do feel like Contratiempo has been a space where I can practice that. So I'm like, Ana Maria, can I talk with you? All nervous. And then I was like, hey, the other day when you said this, it made it feel like, the only reason why Toledo is who Toledo is. And it takes away from like her own knowledge and her own experience and her own powerful self and way of learning about. And then Ana Maria was like, thank you for bringing that up for me. I kind of felt that I said it in that kind of way, which is not what I meant. And so I'm glad that you brought it up, because I wasn't sure if it was received that way. And so she was happy that I had brought it up in that moment. But the whole thing is that I could like foresee the future, and the future was Ruby talking shit. Like that was the future, like it would have turned into like me calling Stanley and being like, that's how I see that it happens in a lot of different spaces. And it wasn't something easy for me to discover for myself of like, oh, really, like if I just like try to talk to the person about it right away when it happens, then it really turns out that that's not what that person meant anyways. Or Ana Maria maybe, is open to learning and to checking her own self. And so maybe like she doesn't want to be perceived in this kind of way. So if I were to tell her like it was received this way, then, that's a space for her to learn, or for her to be like, that's not what I meant. Right. So I feel like that I've seen that because I've been in conversations where we are talking shit, and I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna X name myself and be like, I didn't say nothing, you know? And so I've been in that space. So it's like, I feel like that I've seen that be harmful. And even being a person that when I first joined the company, I felt, I felt new and I didn't really know what was happening and what was going on. But even hearing other people like speak and speak in this kind of way, like I low key feel traumatized now moving forward. And like now I'm like this about everything, right? And it's like, okay, then now that doesn't allow me to enter into a space authentically myself and trusting. Now I'm like, hold up, what? Huh? What? Like,
Yeah. You're like, wait a second, is that what this is? Like,
yes,
always
yeah,
looking around, paranoid. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
I,
think, yeah,
yeah,
um, yeah. I feel like I said, I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and we've learned and growing, and we are growing from our past experiences. I do feel like, yeah, I think similar to what you said, if people are able to speak up when something happens, and we are a gossiping company, okay? We talk a lot of mess about each other, about the world, like we a mess. But yeah, I think that if we're able to really work on on being honest with each other, on being honest about our feelings, um,
yeah.
and
And
also being honest, because we all like when you get a bunch of people with different experiences in a room together, like there's going to be things that like they're not going to do this all the time, right? And so being honest when somebody's doing this to you and you don't like it, like, okay, you said something or you did something or you that just didn't sit right with me, and being honest about that.
yeah, there. Another thing I wanted to say that is that I think I don't know too much other than my own personal experience
Mm-hmm.
of like what it means to heal. And I think one of the important things is that you can't heal for anybody else. Like you can only heal for yourself. And that if you want to heal a relationship, both people or all people, yeah, need to be ready and like want to heal. And if they don't, then they don't. And that's that we all need to be okay with that. Like, that's fine. That's just how we move forward. But I think all three people, all four, whoever is in the need to be ready, need to want to, because sometimes maybe we don't want to, and like I'm good with that. I'm moving forward. I don't ever want to revisit that again. Peace out.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. There's something else I was gonna say today. Oh, I wanted to bring up the conversation that were you there? You were there, but I don't remember when you came in for the conversation about credit for the new piece that we're doing. You were there, right? How we wanted to
Oh,
credit.
yes, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I think that's another example of it. Like even in that space, if I didn't say anything, because I was like, I don't feel like it's okay for us to ask other people for their work,
Mm-hmm.
and it still says that Contratiempo made the video. Like, there was, and so I could have like again, I could have gone on and not said anything, and then felt this feeling of like, oh, we're taking advantage, and it could have like grown into some other bigger monster. And then in that moment when we all talked about it, and then now we had a different way to credit, then I was like, okay, I feel good. Now I feel good asking other people, like, do you want to be a part of this project?
Yeah.
So it like completely shifts the way that we interact with everything, the project, the people in the project, how we talk about it. It just completely changes and shifts.
Yeah, it really does. No, that was good. I applaud. I was sitting there in my office like, come on, Ruby. Yes, you better bring it up. You better talk about it.
I was like, it doesn't feel right. I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't feel right.
I love it. No, this is good. Thank you so much, Ruby, for coming on and sharing with me about your experiences creating and being in a relationship with people and all the different communities that you exist currently as a part of or exist in the past as a part of existed a part. Yes. Yeah, I really appreciate you and I love you.
I love you too.
So don't get it twisted, okay? Even though we are doing really hard work to heal, we also have the potential to cause harm. And so being in constantly checking yourself and checking each other is so important. It's so important in this work.
Yes, 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 yes.
Love you, Ruby.
Can't wait to hug you.
I know, hugging the screen. Ugh.